There are people that have certain forms of brain damage. Lermite syndrome, I think it was called, if I remember correctly, also known as utilization syndrome. And these are people who have a degeneration of the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that organizes your behavior, I would say, at the highest level of abstraction. So when you're thinking voluntarily about what you might do, and then you go do it, it's your prefrontal cortex that's thought that up voluntarily and then organized the rest of your brain to go do it. And so it kind of, one of the things it does is inhibit all the other things you might do. So one of the things that happens to people who have prefrontal damage, especially if it's on the right-hand side, is they get very socially inappropriate because they have all sorts of whims and motivations and emotions that would normally be inhibited by, you know, attention to context, let's say, and the desire for voluntary activity, and they lose that part of the brain, and so they get disinhibited. They can get disinhibited to the point where they have to be institutionalized or jailed because they start acting so inappropriately that they can't be controlled. And so, anyways, Lermite syndrome is utilization syndrome. And one of the things that happens to people who have utilization syndrome, let's say they're in an old folks home, maybe it's a consequence of a degenerative neurological disease, and they're walking down the hallway and there's an open door. And they walk through it. They can't help it because what do you do with a door that's open? You walk through it. Now, you don't if you're doing something else, right? But if you're not doing something else because you haven't got the part of you that is helping you do something else, then the object just tells you what to do. You know, and you see this with little kids too, because whenever you present them with an object, you know, they grab it right away. They often grab it and put it in their mouths. And they do that because their mouths are already wired up completely when they're born, right? Both from a sensory perspective and from a motor perspective. And so kids are always cramming things into their mouth so that they can investigate them with their tongue and map what they are. It's important for them to, well, that's how they learn about the world. And so, anyways, if you have utilization syndrome, you can't not utilize things. So you can hand someone a bottle or a cup of water who has utilization syndrome and they're not thirsty and they'll drink it because it's a cup of water. And what is that? It's not an object. It's a thing to grip and drink. You know, and it's how else can you look at this? This isn't a cliff. It's a falling off place, right? And if you're one of those strange creatures who just think it's a cliff and you know, you're, I don't know, what you're abstracted in thought and you walk off it, then you're dead. It's a lot better to perceive it as a falling off place, which is what you do because, you know what it's like. You go somewhere that's steep and you kind of play with the edge a little bit and you can feel the falling off place map itself on your whole body. It's kind of a strange, I suppose, an interesting experiment to play with that. You know, you might be back here and you think, yeah, that's not too bad. I wonder if I can get a little closer, you know. And maybe you can, and maybe you can get, well, maybe you can get too close, and then you're an evolutionary mistake. So, but you know, you get close enough. Maybe you peer over and you think, yeah, that's enough. And you can feel the falling off place map itself onto your body. And that's how you perceive with your emotions and your motivations and your action systems way more than you think. So you don't, it isn't object, picture on your eye, picture in your brain, thought, emotion, and then action. That's not how it works. You're representing the world at multiple levels in your nervous system at the same time. And you need